Good morning. If you are watching right now, this is the replay. We are no longer live, but welcome. Today I'm going to be making the Char Char by Siah Swag bags, I believe it's called. I made a couple already and I wanted to try a couple modifications on this bag today. So this is the 125% Char Char. This is the regular size. So there's quite a big difference. I added a couple of things and I'm going to walk you through all of the changes and additions that I made, as well as give you all of the measurements. I'm going to wait for my TikTok friends to jump on and then we'll get started. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Hey, Kathy. Hey, Deanie, how are you? How was your Thanksgiving was what, last month? Hey, Latasha. Hey, Jamie. Hello. So this is the size bag that we're making today. I have already quilted it. And then, like I said, I'll show you guys some of the changes that I've made. So on this particular bag, when I increased it, I added a slip pocket on the back for a cell phone, which is the perfect size. Yeah, it was. Yes, it was great. I was in Tennessee for a week, so it was amazing. I also added a dual slip pocket to the front side of the bag. This is the standard zipper pocket that comes with the instructions on the pattern. So I'm going to show you how I did the slip pocket. I'm going to show you how I did this, and I'm actually going to change this pattern up. This is going to be the first time that I'm trying it, so bear with me. But we're going to, instead of sewing it like the pattern says, we're going to make it a drop-in lining. So let me first show you the changes to the pattern that I made. So just for reference, let me set this aside. This is the standard size pattern for the Char Char. This is what it looks like at 125%. So you can see that it's quite a bit more material. The way that it's sewn on the sides, and if you have made this bag, you probably know what I'm talking about. I wanted to switch it up a little bit just to reduce the amount of bulk that's in this side seam right here. So what I did is I used this pattern piece, which is the front body. I actually cut that out twice, so I'm going to be using that for the front and the back. I kept the gusset the same, printed at 125%. I used the interfacing pattern piece for my foam to quilt it. And then for the top flap, I also cut out a piece of foam. What I did was on the top of the pattern piece, there's a little curve on the side. And what I did is I actually just measured it and kept it straight going down. And so this top piece A, which looks like this before you tape it together, I actually just kept the side and just made it straight down to the actual line on the bottom. And I did the same thing on both of those. And that gave me this front flap for my bag that I'm going to be making a drop-in lining. Good morning. Sorry, I know I missed some of y'all's comments. So let's jump right into it. I'll talk about some changes that I made. What I did first, because I changed this to a drop-in lining, is I made a line down the top of the front and back for the outside and inside. It's 3/4 of an inch down. And then on each side of the gusset, I made a line 3/4 of an inch down. This side, I did the same thing. And then for the lining, these 3 pieces on the lining, I did the exact same thing. And what that's going to do is when we fold this down to create a finished edge before we sew everything together, this line is going to tell us where to line up that edge. It is 1181, yep. Okay. Now, the slip pocket on the back, all I'm going to do is cut a piece that is 9 inches by 5, so 9 by 5, and then I'm just going to use the pattern piece curve to curve out the edges of the bottom. So I'm just going to trace that on this side, move it over, and do the same thing over here. That way all of our curves on the outside are the same. Cut that out. So this is the curved edge is going to be the bottom of that slip pocket. And then the straight edge is going to be the top. Sorry, I'm probably going to miss a lot of comments. I know I have a couple of admins in here. If you can answer them for me, that would be great. Happy Saturday! Alright, so this is what the slip pocket on the back is going to look like. You can quilt it if you want. I wanted kind of a different texture on mine. I just cut a piece of scrap fabric and then I actually scrapped together some SF 101. So I'm just going to line that up, clip it together. We're going to sew these right sides together, and I'm going to leave an opening on the bottom about 4 inches wide. That way I can turn this right side out. Have not caught a live since you moved. Oh, hey Kim. Thanks, Deanie. Yeah, I was actually out of town this past week for like 7-8 days. I went to Tennessee to visit my family. Alright, so we're going to sew all the way around. We're going to leave about a, I don't know, 4-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch hole. So we're going to start here, sew all the way around, stop here. And I'm just using like a heavy 1/4 inch seam allowance. I don't know what we did before those clips, right? We taped everything, or at least I did. All right. Good morning. Been missing your lives. Are you on earlier now? No. I think with the holidays, I was just saying that I moved. I traveled, and so I've been gone for the last probably 2 weeks. All right. So I just clipped the excess fabric in the corners. I'm going to take my pinking shears and I'm going to clip the excess fabric in my curves. That way my curve will lay a lot straighter and flatter than if we had all that extra fabric. Now next week I will be doing quite a few lives. I have a live Monday and Tuesday for custom orders. So if you missed me last week, I'll be doing some this week. I like to start in the top of the corner and pull that fabric out first. Just push that down. Is there a schedule for lives yet? No, Kim, I'm sorry. I think I need to get through the holidays. I've been so busy just making orders, custom orders. I've had events to go to, so my schedule just hasn't died down, but I'm thinking at the beginning of the year it should. What time? I believe it's 11 a.m. Monday and Tuesday. If you're in my Facebook group, either one, I post when I go live, just to give you a heads up. Like this morning, I posted that I was going live today. So if you want a heads up like that and you're on Facebook, you're more than welcome to join that group. All right, I'm gonna get my screwdriver in, get the fabric out of these corners. That way we have a nice 90-degree angle. Most of the time it'll just bunch up just a little bit when you turn it right side out. Just go nice and slow. We don't want to poke through our fabric. There we go. So I'm going to use some clips so everything lines up nice. Good morning. I actually kind of like when I fold it over for a little peek of that lining to show out. I think it just gives it a little bit of character. You can totally roll it all the way under though so that you don't see it at all, or you can just leave a little bit poking out. Just gives it a little pop of color. I'm just going to do that all the way around. And then we're going to do a top stitch along the top, and then we're going to sew this down to the actual back of the bag. Press out my curve. The little peak looks great. Thanks, Zini. You could also take this to the iron and give a press on the cotton side just to help everything lay down a little bit flatter. My iron is not in reaching distance. Good morning, good morning. All right, now when we get to that opening that we left, what I want to do is peek inside. I want to follow that seam all the way down. So the fabric that's folded here and here, I want the same amount of fabric folded here. And normally if you just give it a little bit of a tug, if you tuck that in and give it a little bit of a tug, everything usually lines up nicely. Sometimes I'll just fold it down on this side, fold it down on this side, and then put it together. But we want that seam to carry all the way down. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and do a top stitch along the top. I'm going to change to a 5 stitch length. So that is the top of our pocket for our phone. I'm going to grab the back, line that up. I'm going to just center it both horizontally and vertically, and then I'm just going to sew along the edge. I'm not going to, I can remove the clips on the side, but remember our fold is down here. You could also tape it, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to kind of hold it in place. Let me grab my ruler to make sure everything is centered. There we go. I purchased the Big B pattern, but noticed, oh, the slip pocket is different from the current video. Yeah, a lot of the times I'll do a lot of adjustments on my patterns, just changing it up. But the pattern is the pattern. And then anytime I make adjustments, if I'm making a personal bag, I usually just tell you what the measurements are. All right. I'm gonna go ahead, let me get my tension up a little. All right, remember we have our opening down here, so as I lift my clips off, I'm going to hold that down with my fingers and just go nice and slow. All right, and then I'm going to add a couple rivets at the top of it just to reinforce. Most of the stress when you're using a pocket is going to come from right here, from just going in and out. So I'm just going to reinforce that with a couple of small rivets. Okay, I'll figure it out. I like the double slip pocket with the vinyl trim, yeah. I think that's why I changed it, because I just thought it looked a little bit better. But if you can't figure it out, you're more than welcome to send me an email and I can give you the measurements that I use. My email is info@butterbags.com. All right, let me grab my rivets. I think a couple small ones should work. The fabric's not terribly thick here. You're welcome. All right, let me grab my press. Okay, I wish I had a cell phone to show you, but this is actually the perfect size to slide your cell phone in. Like I said, when we started, it was 9 inches by 5 inches, which will fit most phones. And so that is going to be our slip pocket for the back of the bag. Let's do our flap. So this is going to be the front of our bag. So let me kind of show you what it is going to look like. So this is going to be the front, this is going to be the back. We're going to have a gusset going through, and then this is going to fold over the top and then clip in place. So this is going to be the outside. I think I just cut just a square. I do that because I use a cutting mat and a rotary cutter instead of cutting all these round corners and everything to the pattern. I just use this and then cut it out when I'm done. So this is where our magnetic snaps are going. Like I said, this is the first time that I've made this bag with these modifications. So I'm going to be figuring out the measurements as we go along. So the lining, let me grab the bag. This is what it looks like if you missed it in the beginning. The lining of the flap are where the magnetic snaps go. Again, because the measurement's going to be off just a little bit because I cut the pattern piece here, but I still have to figure for seam allowance. These aren't going to line up if I use the same measurements. So I say all that to say, I'm working it out as we go. So what I probably should do, because the magnetic snaps go in the lining, I probably should cut this to size. What do I want to do? I really just need this bottom piece right here to know how far in to go. So I'll just mark where I'm going to be placing it when I put it back together. Let me grab my magnetic snaps and my notes from when I did the last one. So the last time I did on the pocket 1.5 inches up. So remember, this is 125% of the pattern. So the measurements that I'm giving you is not the measurements in the pattern because that's at standard. All right, so let's just go 1.5 inches up. And then let's do 1.25 in. So we're going 1.25 in from the side, 1.5 inches up, 1.25, which would make it about right here. Now what's really important is we want to measure the distance between these two because the distance is what we want them to clip to. So this is 8.5. Let me write that down. 8.5 between the little snappies. And then we know to do that on the other side. All right, I'm gonna put my nail snaps up top. And then what I'll probably do is make the whole bag, leave an opening, and then figure out, once we put everything together, where to put the other snaps on the other piece. Good morning. Happy Saturday. I know I'm a little bit earlier than normal. I made this, I cut out everything last night and I've been dying to sew this up. So I was either like, I'm gonna just get at it or I'm gonna go on live and do it, but it's gonna be done this morning. All right, so we're going to just center our snaps, or the back. Center that little hole where we put the little dot, and then mark out where our prongs go. Hi, Donna. chance just to make sure. I think I did. That should be fine. Now you shouldn't have to worry about it. We're making cuts in our lining. And remember, each time we open up our bag, this is the lining that we're doing right now. Anytime we open up our bag, we're gonna get just a tiny bit of stress on that. If you're making this bag for like He-Man, then you wanna enforce it. Most people aren't going to mess up the magnetic snaps, but what you can do, just to reinforce it so you don't have to worry about any more of your fabric ripping, is add a little bit of fray check. You can get this at Walmart. I think I have bought this from like Joann years ago. And then just add a little bit. It kind of acts like fabric glue, so it keeps it from fraying. And I just add a little bit to the back. I'm going to poke these through. And that just kind of tightens up that fabric so it doesn't rip. But again, unless it's someone that's just super harsh on your bags, I wouldn't even worry about doing this step. I don't know who this bag is going to or who it's going to be sold to, so I'm just going to reinforce it. Just for my own peace of mind. There we go. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our exterior flap. Oh, I drew it on the wrong side. Let's go ahead and just cut this down. I should have made the mark on this side so that way I know where to line this up, but that's okay. You live and learn. Hi, Carmen. So I'll just cut this out. I'm just going to reference this video the next time I make one so I know what I did wrong and change it next time, which is what sewing is all about. Again, I've made this bag 3 different times in 3 completely different ways, and I've learned something and changed something every single time. All right, so we want to line up the bottom, clip it in place, and then sew everything together. This is making me a little nervous as far as the distance from the side. I might just reduce my seam allowance to compensate for that, because when we turn this right side out, we're going to have to top stitch. So I'll probably wind up doing like a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just so I know I have enough room. All right, we're just going to sew around the outside. We're not going to sew down the top, and we're going to use this to turn it right side out. Good morning. All right, so let me grab my pinking shears, get some of this curved extra fabric out of there. And then turn this right side out. I'm just going to go ahead and trim this down. This is the Char Char, C-H-A-R. This is already pulling away, which is no big deal. I might even just take it off. So somebody asked me about my interfacing. This is foam, and then this is woven interfacing. So this is SF101. Hey, Just Mammy. Happy Saturday. I actually might take this foam out. Let's see. If I don't like it, then the next one that I make, I'll just have it. What you can also do is add a piece of so if you want to use foam, and then put a piece of SF101 over top of it, and that usually allows it to adhere to the rest of the fabric. No big deal. Have I been missing you? No, I've been out of town. I just got back a couple of days ago. I went out of town for Thanksgiving. I want to get that curve nice and pushed out. Yes, Char Char bag pattern by Siah, S-H-I-A-H, S-I-A-H. I'm not quite sure. Just gonna add a clip on these corners. So remember how I said I was nervous about the placement? I think that's gonna give me plenty of space to top stitch, and I don't have to worry about my foot hitting that metal. Did I take the babies? No, my sister watched them for me. I wish I would have. Hindsight, I would have taken them with me. Just because my mom loves my dogs, and we had some other family there that loved the dogs. Just Mammy, this is the Char Char. C-H-A-R-C-H-A-R. This is the first time I've made it live. All right, we're gonna top stitch all the way around. I'm using a 5 stitch length. The way that the pattern is originally written, this top stitch actually is the last step. I just want to make sure my seam is pressed out. There we are. Yeah, Siah Swag bag, I think. All right, so here's going to be the flap. I believe the entire exterior, that's the only prepping that I need to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew everything together. So this is the front of the bag. This is the back of the bag where we added our little cell phone pocket. This is the gusset. Excuse me, this is what goes around to give our bag the depth. So we're gonna go ahead and sew these together. So I mark the center of the bottom where the curve is, and then I mark the center of my gusset. I'm going to start by lining those up and then clip it all the way around. The first time I made this bag quilted, I actually had the foam in my seam, my entire seam. And I wanted to try it with just the interfacing piece just to see if it made a difference in the final look or the feel of the bag. All right, so I do the straight edges first. I'm going to leave my curve for the last part. And this just goes all the way to the top, which is a little bit different than the pattern. Now what you can do for the curves, you can stretch it and line it up and then maybe staple it. You can add a couple of slits, and that's going to allow it to lay a little bit flatter to go around. It's really dependent on your material, your interfacing, your sewing level. I'm just gonna kind of push it together and clip it down and then deal with it when I sew it. I think I increased my gusset 1/4 inch from what the pattern is just to make it a touch bigger, because the last 2 times I made this, I found that it was just a little bit too small for my liking. Again, the tutorial shows you to cut slits in it, and I did that and it laid perfectly, but just the way that I like to sew, I just made it a little bit bigger. And to do that, you want to add the additional material to the center. You don't want to add it to the end of each side, because, or you can add it to the end of each side, but the easiest way is just to add it to the center. Yes, the original pattern also uses piping. I haven't used that. That's on my list to try, but I haven't used it. All right, we're going to start with a 3/8 seam allowance, about 1 inch down, and then I'm going to go to a heavy 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. So now I'm transitioning to a 1/4 inch, going around my curves, I'm just going to use something sharp to kind of hold that down. The reason why I start with a 3/8 and then go smaller is because I'm going to be sewing the inside exactly like this with a 3/8 inch, and the inside has to match all the way around the top. The outside of the bag, I want the inside lining to be a touch smaller than the outside. That way I don't have to worry about like a saggy lining. And so reducing your seam allowance outside makes the outside bigger than the inside. So that way the inside is a touch smaller. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so I'm just gonna grab something sharp. All right, and then about an inch before I get back to the top, I'm going to move back to a 3/8. You can kind of tell right here where I went from a 3/8 down, hopefully. All right, we're gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing with the back. So we're gonna match up our centers and then clip the straightways and then deal with the curves at the end. Great pattern. I really like this pattern. Like I said, the method the pattern uses to put everything together, it was a little bit tricky. There was a little bit of bulkiness, especially in this curve right here. When you're sewing it together, there's a little bit of bulkiness here. And what I did is I cut in a V to reduce some of that bulkiness. But again, I wanted to try a drop-in lining. I also, because the back is one full piece, this is one full piece. If you used a directional fabric, it would be upside down here and then right side down here because it is folded in half. And this pattern that I'm using is directional, so that's why I wanted to kind of cut it up and try a drop-in lining. We're gonna see together if this works. Oh, hey, haven't seen you in like forever. Hi. I don't know why my videos aren't getting pushed out. It's fine. Hey, Holly. Thanks, Janet. All right, straightways are done. Now we're gonna go ahead and tackle the corners. And again, let me show you. So if you see, it doesn't really line up that well. If you add a couple of slits, I think she says to do this to your lining, but I like to do it to the gusset. It will naturally spread out to line up a little bit better. Or you can make your gusset a little bit bigger, which is what I opted to do. I'll probably add maybe another 1/4 inch to it the next time I cut out a bag. I'm seeing all your sounds and sewing. Oh, good. I didn't get a live notification of this one, but that was been an issue for. Yeah, I think I've heard that if you're on TikTok, when I go live, it doesn't notify you. I don't know why. All right, again, we're gonna start with a 3/8, go down about an inch, transition to a 1/4. I also need to add my name tape. Don't let me forget that after I'm done with this. So I'm just going to grip that fabric, make sure it's lined up. All right, let's start transitioning back to a 3/8. And we're done. Okay, so because this is going to be a drop-in lining, I started by saying I measured down 3/4 of an inch. That's going to be the line where we know when we fold it, it's going to line up to. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but what I do want is when we're doing our side seams, in order for those to lay down nice and flat when we have to fold it over, I'm going to just sew them open at the very top. And that'll just be a little bit easier when we're tackling the drop-in part later. How hard was it getting used to the time difference between here and Hawaii? Oh my gosh, it wasn't bad at all. I think maybe a couple of days. I was ready to get back on East Coast time. So that's what it looks like when we sew them open. And again, that's just going to be a little bit easier when we fold that down at the very end. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So the pattern has hidden connectors to add your shoulder strap to or crossbody strap to. If you know me, know that personally I'm not a fan of hidden connectors. I don't know what it is about them, it's just not my jazz. So what I had done, I bought these little connectors, I think on Amazon, and I just put them on both sides. So if you're not going to do this, if you want to do the connector, you want to do that before you do this step right here where we join the gusset to the bag. Okay. So our exterior is all done. We're going to set this aside and work on the interior. So I added a dual slip pocket. Like I said, this is not in the pattern. This measures 12.5 by 5.5. So 12.5 by 5.5. I also have a 1-inch piece of vinyl accent for the top, and it's just 1 inch by 12.5. I have a line down the center. I'm going to add a piece of double-sided tape to both edges, and that's just going to hold it in place while we sew it down. So this is 2 pieces of my lining, and all I did was just put them wrong sides together, and then I just did a stitch along the top with an 1/8 inch seam allowance, so just to hold these 2 pieces of fabric together. And then this is just going to go over top. And because these are the modifications that I made, they are not in the pattern, I can't give you the measurements, but please don't ask about any pattern pieces. I can't give you those. And this is just 1/4 inch double-sided tape. So this is both a functional and a top stitch, so I'm going to use a size 4. And what I like to do is I like to leave 1 piece of tape facing me. I like to have the sewn side of the top facing me. I'm going to line this up just a hair short of that center line. Press it into the tape. Take off the top, fold it over, and press the tape in. If you don't have tape, that's fine. You can also just fold it over and clip it in place. Alright, so I'm going to do 2 stitches. I'm going to do 1 stitch along the bottom and then 1 stitch along the top. I start with the bottom. All right. Good morning. So that is what it looks like, the double stitching. I'm going to grab one of my inside lining pieces. Remember, We also made a line 3/4 of an inch down from the top. I'm going to line this up with the bottom of my fabric. Did I mark my center? I did not. I want to mark the bottom center of my pattern pieces. That's going to help me when we add our gusset to it, just to make sure everything lines up. Alright, so we're going to line this up. I'm going to flip it over. And then now what we're going to do, I feel like I may have made that a little too tall. So let me see what it looks like when it's done. Yeah, that's a little too tall. So I'm probably going to take, let's take 3/4 of an inch off. So remember how I said it's 12.5 by 5.5? It's going to be 4 3/4. So we're just going to take off 3/4 of an inch. I won't be able to sew everything together if it's this height. There we go. Just gonna add a couple clips. We'll trim that down after we sew it on. What are you working on? This is called the Char Char. It's a pattern by Siah Swag. Siah? Somebody help me out. Siah or Siah? Siah Swag, thanks. Okay, now I'm just going to trim this excess material. Did somebody remind me to add my name tag? And I just didn't look up in time. I'm also going to add my center snip to that pocket. There we go. This is a Juki 1181. Okay, so let me add my name tape. So I have been doing it on the front flap of my bag. I don't know if I want to change it to the back flap. I'm not sure. So we'll just do it here. Let me measure. It's almost 8 inches, so 4 inches would be halfway. This is a 3-inch ruler, so I'm just going to go up a little bit. Oops, I don't think anyone did. It's okay. No worries. It's not too late. I know a lot of the time when I'm watching people's lives, I'm not even close to my phone. I'm probably around the other side of the room. All right. Perfect. So because we didn't close the top of it, I can put my hand inside and just cut through the exterior and add my nameplate. I do the same most of the time. I'm just listening, yeah. I know a lot of people that do that. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's done. All right, so for the inside, sorry, I just jumped out of that. We're gonna go ahead and separate these two pockets so that way it's a dual slip pocket. So we're going to sew up across and then back down. And because you can fold it in half and press it down to get your crease, you can measure it and use a pen. Because I have a line in this fabric and I clip the center, I know where to go up and then come back and go down. So that's why I didn't do anything fancy. So I like to back stitch when I get to the very top just to reinforce that. Come over 1 or 2 stitch, I think it's just 1 stitch. Come back down, but when I start, I'm going to back stitch as well to reinforce that. And then just come all the way down. There we are. So now we have 2 separate pockets. So had I kept that additional 1/4 of an inch material, it would have stopped way up here. And then once we fold this down, it would have just been in the way of top stitching, which is why I reduced the size of the pocket. Thanks. I think I bought this from Joann too a long time ago. All right, so we have our dual slip pocket. Now we're gonna go ahead and make a zippered pocket on the other side of the interior. And then what I wanna do is just kind of start it around the same. So this is 1.5 inches down. So I will measure 1.5 inches down here. Let me mark my center. And then we'll start our zipper overlay 1.5 inches down from the top. That way everything lines up on both sides perfectly. This, I kind of like doing these where we're walking through everything, the modifications, because this is kind of how a designer's brain works when you're designing a pattern. And so I'm glad that I'm able to kind of give you guys my thought process. And when you're designing how to look for certain things, like again, the top of the vinyl, you want to make sure that it matches up on both sides. I mean, it doesn't have to, but those are just the little things that add to your bag making. So I got 2 pieces of double-sided tape. Again, I have my ruler 1.5 inches down. I'm going to take off the backing and we're going to center it. I believe it's 2 inches in between. So I got a 2, like a 2 1/4. Well, it's actually like 2 1/8, 2 1/8. I'm going to press the top all the way up, push that tape in, and then I'm going to make sure that my box is the same all the way down, press that tape in. And then now what we're going to do is just stitch around the outside of the zipper overlay. We're not going to back stitch when we start or stop. Instead, we're going to pull our thread through. And I think I need to pause after this and grab a zipper. I don't think I grabbed a zipper. So we're going to pull our thread through so we can knot it off. You want to make sure that your threads are out of the way so you don't sew over them. And then the goal is to stop in the same hole that we started, so that way everything looks seamless. You can backstitch when you start or stop as well. Again, this is just another little technique where people see it and they're like, oh wow, looks great. Or not. A lot of people wouldn't even notice it. And that's okay too. Other bag makers would notice it though. So I can, oh right here, I think that's where I started and where I stopped. So it looks a little bit more seamless than having double stitches. I apologize about my fingernails. I painted them, which I never paint them, and I just haven't taken it off yet. All right, we're gonna get that fabric out of there, so that way we can add our zipper pocket, which we're going to make next. Oh good, I did not miss you. Hey! We did not. We still have a little bit of bag making left. I like to kind of pull that away from that zipper tape or double-sided tape. Thanks, Celtic. I thought I cut a zipper. I guess I didn't. I think what I want is, so we have the dark purple for the vinyl. I think I want like a lilac color for the zipper pocket. So let me go grab that and cut it really quick. My zipper pocket for the inside is 9.5 inches. 10 inches by 6. So I need a zipper that's 10 inches long. Grab a pull. I'm gonna turn on my iron. All right. I need to iron my zipper. Oh, I don't want to lose you. I think that'll look really pretty. Just different colors of purple. All right, so we're gonna set this aside. I'm gonna wait for my iron to heat up, and I'm going to iron this nice and flat. Let me get everything prepped. I have to move my iron. Go. Okay, so now on one of our pocket pieces, we're going to lay it right side up. We're going to sew the one side of the zipper along the top of that pocket. I don't backstitch when I start or stop, just because we're only working with one uninterfaced piece of fabric, of cotton, and my machine likes thicker fabrics. So they bunch up when they're thinner, and not backstitching allows me to pull my stitches out so it's not bunched up anymore. So that's why I don't backstitch. My comments are showing up gray. Can y'all see me? Yes, just mammy. It shows that comment pinned at the top. I don't know if you did that, but when I looked at your comments, they look like normal. I wonder if they're highlighting it because they're your comments. I'm not sure. Okay, I forgot to mention on the other piece, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lay that right side up and just sew the top of the zipper along there. This is the zipper pocket, and the pattern is done a little bit differently than mine. There's more than one way to make a pocket. This is just my favorite way. All right, let me see if I can pull my iron. I can't get my iron close, sorry. I'm gonna just iron this really quick flat. That's just a little steam I'm using. I just lay it flat and then iron along each side, flip it over, iron along the back. We're gonna add our pull. I did, okay, okay. They're normal for me, I don't see great, yeah. TikTok is a funny place. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and add this to our zipper overlay. So on the back of it, I'm gonna add some, actually no, you know what I've been doing? I have been using double-sided tape for my zipper overlays. I'm just trying to get into the practice of just upping my techniques just a little bit. If you need double-sided tape, that's totally okay. I would put a piece right along the top, right along the bottom, flip this over, and then attach it that way. But what I've been trying to do is get away from crutches. And for me, because I've been doing this for a really long time, it's a crutch for me. I'm not saying that if you use double-sided tape, you're crutching it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for me. I know how people get tied up on the little things. So what I have been doing is just making sure everything is nice and centered. Making sure that the same amount of zipper tape is exposed on both sides. And then I've been kind of holding it in place and sewing it down. My whole view has changed. Video and center on white logo background. Oh no, that's weird. Alright, so we're going to make sure everything is lined up. Again, I'm not going to back stitch. I'm going to adjust as I need to make sure everything is nice and even. But again, if you use tape, it doesn't shift at all. And usually after you sew that the top row of stitching, everything pretty much stays in place. We're going to pull that thread back so we can knot it off. Are you changing the stitch length? Yeah, so I go from a 3 to a, or 3.5 on the outside to a 4 on the inside. Thanks, Benita. Hi, Del. The reason why I changed my stitch length is because maneuvering inside of where the zipper is, my foot kind of hesitates, and so the stitches are actually smaller because of that hesitation and the distance that my foot has between where the edge of the vinyl is and my zipper. So just using the same stitch length, that actually winds up being smaller because of that little hesitation. So if I increase it just a 1/2 inch, then it's the same. Hopefully that makes sense. But I don't do it just because I want to have a larger stitch length on the inside and the outside. It's just the way my machine handles that inside. Oh, you're welcome. All right, we're going to tie that off. I'm going to just singe that with my lighter. Okay, so that's what it looks like a little bit closer up. You probably won't be able to tell much about that stitch length I was telling you about, but for me, it's noticeable. All right, what we're going to do is we're gonna have our pocket totally open flat, flip it over. We're gonna cut down the bottom. Oh, I left my scissors. That's okay, I'll just use these. And then we're going to flip this over. We are going to fold this down. And for this bag, we're going to sew the pocket completely shut. If you were not doing a drop-in lining like I'm doing, then you would need to leave an opening. Hold on, let me get this stupid puzzle piece. Then you would just sew along the 2 sides, use this as your opening for turning the bag right side out. We're not doing it that way. We're doing a drop-in lining, so I can completely close my pocket. Okay, good, Christina. Christine, sorry. I made this pocket way too big. I would probably, what did I say, 10 inches? I would probably do 9 inches next time. As a matter of fact, let me make a note to myself. Interior zipper pocket, let's go 9. There was another thing that I changed. I'll have to go back and watch it. It is a walking foot, yeah. I'm making a travel bag at the moment. Nice. That packet is completely sewn. Let me grab my scissors. Had to grab some water. We're gonna cut the excess off. Just get that extra fabric out of there without cutting through our bag. All right, there we go. So we have our interior zipper pocket all made up. And again, it's fully closed because we're not using that as an opening. Now we're ready to put everything together. So we have this side of the interior, our dual slip pocket for the interior, and then we're just going to add our gusset piece just like we did the outside. So let's start with our zipper pocket. I'm going to just clip my pocket up out of the way. Why are scissors hard to find? I have 3 tape measure and then just disappear. So these are my everything scissors and they never leave my sewing machine. But I had to go cut a zipper and those are the best scissors to use for my zippers because they're like a heavy duty. But I've got literally 10 pairs of scissors stashed everywhere in my cutting room or sewing room. All right, so just like the outside, we're gonna start with our straight edges and then we'll work on our curves. That's my iron going off. Okay, what I am going to do for my corners is use some pens. Actually, I'm probably going to add a couple snips too, just so it lays a little bit easier. There's not as much pull on cotton that's been interfaced as there is with vinyl. Vinyl has a tiny bit of stretch. So that's why I don't necessarily have to snip it for the outside, where I would definitely recommend doing that for the inside. Just because I have no pull with this material. I do have a little bit of pull with vinyl. My husband uses my scissors in random locations. That's grounds for a beating. I'm just kidding. My husband knows, like I do the same thing upstairs, like in my regular house. We have scissors in our bedroom, our workout room, tons of scissors in the kitchen. There's no reason why he would ever need to use my scissors. And he knows that. My husband knows better, right? When I first met my husband, he would use kitchen knives to open up packages. And that's when we had the big scissor conversation, because there's no way you're gonna, I feel about my scissors down here as I feel about my kitchen utensils when I'm cooking. So we had the big scissor talk after I saw him using my knife to open a package. My sister chained her scissors to the drawer. That's hilarious. All right. Now for the inside, remember how we started with the 3/8, we went down to a 1/4 inch. We're gonna keep that 3/8 inch all the way around. Again, that's gonna make it a tiny bit smaller for the inside than the outside. Oh, my stitch length is a little long. I like to use a 3. Scissor locks in bright red. My ex-husband cut wiring with, oh no, he almost went to jail. Yes, you have to press charges. He asked me where they're recently and I told him I have some upstairs. Yep. Smart, smart. And mine aren't even, like, I bought my scissors from Joann like probably 10 years ago, and they couldn't have been any more than $30. But I will go to war with anybody who tries to take these away from me. All right, so that's what it looks like. The inside lining of our bag, I can go ahead and unclip that now, and then now we're going to go ahead and add this. So remember how I said to measure down earlier, so that way the top of your vinyl kind of lines up on the inside. You don't have one starting way up here and then this one starting way down there. It's for more visual, but again, functionality, it doesn't really matter. He said he didn't, but painting in the blades. Ah, oh no. When I was a hairdresser. Yeah. Yep. I can imagine. Because those are super sharp. Funny story, I actually wanted to make one of these bags where it had a lining and then a flap going over the top of it. And about 3 weeks ago, I started working on a pattern for that. And I think I was just scrolling through Facebook. I hadn't finished it. I had only started, like, I got the gusset and the front and back done. But I was scrolling through Facebook and saw this pattern and I was like, Yahtzee. I don't need to make one anymore. I label my scissors for fabric and paper. They were just, yes. Yep, cardboard. That cardboard drives me nuts. I actually switched over to a box cutter for packages and boxes. And obviously recycling, it's just easiest to use all of that to break it down. Okay, last pin. And then we're gonna sew it down with a 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around. Stand up right now. I use razor blades. Yeah, I've seen other people. I'm just scared to death that I'm going to cut my fabric. So our inside lining is all done. Now what we want to do, just like the outside, I'm going to go ahead and sew my seams flat. So that way when we put the inside and outside together, it's going to be a lot easier. So open that up. You can also use double-sided tape. I believe in the tutorial for this, she uses double-sided tape. And you can absolutely do that. All you would do is place a piece of double-sided tape right here, place one right here, probably like an inch long, and then take off the backing, open it up, and then just press it together, and then the tape will stick. I think I've even ironed these down before in my early bag making days. The stitching for me is just a lot quicker. Just sewing them open. I don't have to worry about anyone using my scissors because I live alone, but all right, so inside outside is done. Remember, this is a drop-in lining, so we need to finish the top of this as well as the top of our, pardon my reach, outside, and then we'll drop them together after we add our flaps. So the problem is going to be with the snaps. So let's just try to figure this out. I have to figure out where the snaps go on the outside of the bag. So let's try to figure that out really quick. Let's turn this right side out. Okay, so it's gonna go on the front. Remember, this is the back because it has that little slip pocket. So let's go ahead, act as if, oh, I don't want to do that. Let's put our double-sided tape. I'm gonna turn it right side out, or keep it inside out. And then we're going to place a row of tape right above that line that we drew, all the way around. And again, if you don't have tape, don't want to use tape, you can just fold it over and clip it in place. And we're just going to go all the way around. Snaps can be tricky at times. Yeah. How do you get the diamond stitch so straight? Is there a guide that you use? Un momento. I'll show you exactly what I do. Okay. Just push that in really quick. Then I'll grab a paper and show you what I do. Pardon my reach. Alright, so let's just say this is my vinyl. Disregard that, that doesn't mean anything. I have this ruler, and if you look where it says 30, it might be easier to see it this way. If you look where it says 30, this line and this line gives you a 30-degree angle. The 45 is what I use. So this line and this line give you a 45-degree angle. So what I do, where's my pen? I just had it. Here we go. Is I will lay this on my fabric where that 45-degree line is. I will continue it right here, continue it right here, continue it up here, and then down here. And then all I do is match those lines. Like that. So that's my angle. And then this diamond is 1.5 inches. So I'll just put my ruler 1.5 inches. Keep going this way, flip it around, keep going this way, and then do the same thing with this one. Go 1.5 inches from that line, make a mark, and then just keep it going both ways. And that's how I get the diamond. So to start, I'm sure you could download something offline too that gives you the same thing if you don't want to invest in a ruler. I have one, which is why I use that. But I would look online if you don't have one just to see if you can get something for free first. That's my motto. All right. Let's go ahead and take this off. We're going to fold this over so we can see if we can't get that mark for the magnetic snaps. That way I can make a mark or add it to my notes so I don't have to worry about doing this next time. All right, so we're just folding that down and pushing it into the tape all the way around. Move this. Because this is going to be the finished edge of our bag. It's not going to get any taller, it's not going to get any shorter. We know that that is where it's going to stop. And then that way I can add the flat, do a little bit of measuring, and then we can figure out how far down we need to add them before we finish the bag. There we go. It's a little high. Let's pull that down. There we go. Oh, cool. Thank you. It's so impressive to keep the fabric clean. Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of different things that you can use. I actually saw the other day where somebody connected a laser light coming straight down here, and it kind of shows you, you can adjust it for the width so that you know what's 1 inch, 1.5 inches, etc. There's so many cool things that you can use. There's a seam guide that you can get an attachment for your sewing machine. There's so many different things. All right, so Looking at this now, I would probably bring this pocket down a little bit, probably another 1/4 of an inch, just to give me a little room. My foot's going to be able to fit over that, no problems, but maybe next time I'll pull that down a little bit. Okay, so let's act like our bag is done. I'm going to go ahead and sew this top together so I don't have to worry about that opening up. I'm going to measure down a 1/4 of an inch, which is probably where my stitching is. On both sides. That's where I know to line it up on the outside. So when we put it together, I'm going to put it right along that line, and then I'm going to push it down just a tiny bit so that you don't see the line anymore. So let's go ahead and just do that with a piece of tape. Write it down so you don't forget. Yeah, good call. Move exterior slip pocket down, what'd I say, a 1/2 inch? There we go. And then this is going to attach this way. So I need the double-sided tape right here. Now you don't even necessarily, if you're using 1/4 inch double-sided tape, you don't even necessarily need to draw that line. You can just look at it at the top of the tape. All right, take that off. We're going to attach it to the back part because remember it's going to flip over the front. So I want to make sure everything is nice and centered. Push it down in the tape. There we go. So that's what it's going to look like when it's done. So I want to make sure everything is nice and straight and even. Gonna add, gotta make sure you take into account the width. So I'm gonna add a couple of clips to keep it in place and then measure. There we go. Add a clip there. Add a clip there. There we go. That looks good. All right, so now what I'm going to do, slowly, just find out where my magnetic snap is and make a mark. Find out what this one is. Actually, it doesn't even matter where the other one is, and I'll show you. Remember how we wrote down it's 8.5 inches in between our magnetic snaps? So we made a mark right here. We're gonna go up the same distance and then over 8.5. That way we know it's perfect. So remember I used a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so we're going to go up 2.5 inches. So this is my drop-in lining. I have notes for the regular size, the 125%, and then now I'm doing notes for the drop-in. So exterior, front, mag, snap, up, what'd I say, 2.5? Yeah, 2.5. 2.5 inches. There we go. So now I know that'll make it easier before I put this to the gusset. I know where to mark and attach. Okay. So let's go over 8.5 inches, 2.5 inches up. Uh-oh. There's a bird right outside my door. There we go. I'm kind of glad that it's sitting on this little seam because I want to show you what to do if you ever have to poke holes for your magnetic snap on a quilted seam. And some of you guys may know this, some of you guys may not. This one is kind of close to a seam as well. Okay. Remember, you're dealing with a circular object. When we attach these, it doesn't really matter where the post goes because the front is circular. So if you line it like this and you would be cutting through your stitches, which could unravel all of your stitches, just turn it and find out where you can poke your holes without poking through those stitches. That'll go through the stitches, that kind of won't. There we go. So I'm going to wind up poking through here and here and not go through my stitches. Hopefully you can see that. But don't think that it has to be lined up straight. It's a circle. Gonna poke right before I get there, right before I get to these stitches. Good morning. Would be great to have a fold down piece with card slots and I do under the flat. Make it. Make it. A lot of the times when I do modifications or even when I make other patterns, I use pieces from, you know, other patterns that I have made before and use those in other bags. Okay, so that's that one. Let me find out where this will go without cutting through my stitches. That's right here. Okay. All right. Can't wait until I get my machine fixed. That's the worst time of my life. And then we can go ahead and just make sure everything lines up, and it does perfectly. And so now all we have to do is at the inside. So I'm going to set this aside. We're going to go ahead and fold down the top just like we did to the exterior. We're going to start with adding some double-sided tape right along that top line. So again, sewing those sides open, it just makes it a little bit easier when you get to this step. Let's just get these threads out of the way. We don't want any problems. There we are. I bought it to see if it's junk since you can always return it. Oh, a sewing machine? One more press all the way around. Yeah. Vever. I don't know if I've ever heard of that, but I'm not super knowledgeable on sewing machines, so that shouldn't surprise anybody. All right, let's go ahead and start folding right down to that line that we drew. That's all I'm doing is folding down, pressing it into the tape all the way around. Because the sides have the most fabric, sometimes it's easier to get those done first and then just follow it around. As good as my chicken. Nice. I thought I bought it from Joanne. Oh, cool. Learn something new every day. All right, interior is done. So we're just going to, let's add a piece of tape to our flap like we did for the outside piece, just so the inside lining can just stick to it. We're gonna clip all the way around, but there's no clipping around this part, so we're just gonna add some tape. That's all I did. Okay. It doesn't really matter what side is your slip pocket and zipper pocket. I like the slip pocket to be on the front side of the bag and then the zipper pocket to be back here with the flap. So that's what I'm going to do, but do you boo. It's just easier when you have it open. So this is your side. If you have it open, you can just slip in, but it doesn't really matter, honestly. All right, I'm gonna start by matching up my side seams. Putting a couple clips. Right back in machine so you can keep working. Yeah. The maker of this pattern actually made this bag with her cylinder arm machine, and I was so jealous. Maybe one day. I just don't think I would use it enough to need it. All right, so we're going to line up that a little bit higher than that mark that we made and press that into the tape just like that, because again, we can't clip it down like we're doing here because we don't have the clearance. And then we're just going to go ahead and keep clipping it around the front. We're looking good. I think I really like this drop-in opposed to the original way. The original way is not hard, but again, she doesn't have to use, you do not have to have a cylinder arm to make this bag the traditional way the pattern calls. It's definitely a lot easier though. Okay, and then all we're going to do is just stitch around the entire top of it to combine everything, and I think this is just going to be a lot easier than, again, the traditional way the pattern has. Did you move the zipper overlay lower than your original pattern has it? Yes, I did it, what I say, 1.5 inches down from the top. I'm going to post this video to my YouTube later on this afternoon, so if you missed any of the measurements or you missed any of the placement, it'll be up there so that you can reference it later. All right, let's do it. Let me just, it's probably not going to line up because we have these clips here, but I just want to give it a look. I know the width is perfect. That looks good. I love it. Okay, let's sew it up. I'll just start, it doesn't really matter, let's start on the back. All right, 5 stitch length, we're good, we're good. And I am doing like a heavy 1/8 inch stitch because the inside and outside are not sewn together. This is a functional and top stitch, so I want to go as close to the outside as possible so I don't have any kind of gap. So much easier to sew with the drop-in. Strap connect That's gonna be, I'm gonna add mine at the end. The pattern calls for a hidden strap connector, and I like to use some hardware. I should have checked my bobbin, but I think I'm good. This is the worst place that you can get caught with no bobbin. And we're just gonna go nice and slow. The top flap slipped out just a tiny bit, so I'm just going to reposition that. There we go. Alrighty, all done. So that is what you may remember. We made our lining just a touch smaller than the outside with that seam allowance, so it tucks in really nicely. And then we added those dual slip pockets. There we are. That's what it looks like. Next time I would probably move my logo down. I would probably just do it up. I wouldn't worry about centering it. I would probably just do it up to, let's say 2.5 inches. Name tag up 2.5 from flap. Sometimes I just do like a little symbol. All right. Now what I've been doing are using these attachments right here. I just like the cleanness of it. Again, I'm not a fan personally of the hidden connectors. You could also add something to the top right here. Like, let me show you. I might make something a little bit smaller, a little bit more narrower, but you can also add something to the top of these sides. There's a bunch of different ways that you can add connectors. So it's just whatever your preference is. And let me grab mine. I am going to use some glue. I don't know how that big old mark got right there. I'm gonna grab my screwdriver. Okay. I believe the name of these are called screw-on D-rings. On the replay when I post this, I will link where I purchased mine from, just in case you can't find it or you want to find a new supplier. All right, so all I'm going to do is, I usually go down about 1 inch and center it. There's a stitch line right here. I don't know if I want to make it higher or lower. Let me look at my other side. Let's see. Let's go 3/4 inch. That gives me clearance there. Does it give it to me here? No. 1/2 inch does though. And 1/2 inch does. This one looks like it was probably 1/2 inch. No, yeah, about 1/2 inch. So that's not a bad placement, because the top of it will come to the top. Sorry, you probably can't see that. The top of the D-ring will come to the top of the side. So let's go 1/2 inch. I'm just gonna eyeball. Did I get these connectors? I bought them, yeah. use my screws. Alright, so we're going to center down about a 1/2 inch. We're going to poke it through the lining and the exterior. Go down a 1/2 inch. Make sure it's centered. Poke through both of those. And then the screw goes on the inside. And then you screw this to the outside. What I like to do is add a little bit of E6000 glue right where the screw goes, and that just reinforces it. Thanks, Dell. Just the tiniest amount, because what's going to happen is when this gets pressed to the side of the bag, the glue can squirt off. I just put my whole thumb in there. It's tragic. Let me clean off my thumb. Good thing I have this scrap material. All right. And then I just kind of get it started. I'm going to hold the screw. I keep getting glue on my fingers. I'm going to hold the screw in place on the inside and then just kind of turn this to get it started. Go. And then I'm going to grab my screwdriver on the inside and kind of switch. I'm just going to hold this and screw that in. There we go. That's what it looks like. And do the same thing over here. Going to start by pushing the screw in, and you can even just put the glue on top of the screw if you trust yourself. Let's see what mess I make. Don't need a lot, just the tiniest amount. That's probably going to be easier if you just put it on the screw. Get it started by just doing a couple twists to lock it on. There we go. And then switch over to the screwdriver. And you can even just do this if you don't want the screw on the inside, which is not going to hurt anything. But if you don't want to do that, then you can do it before you put it together. I would just definitely recommend putting it down lower so that way when you stitch your side, it won't get caught on that. But I absolutely don't mind the screw showing. A lot of the times if I make a bag that just has a shoulder strap and somebody asks for a crossbody strap and I can't sew it on because the bag's made, I'll add these. Hi, Diana. Okay, now I just need to decide if I want a traditional strap or a chain strap. Now I will say I have been obsessed with the chain strap with the quilted bags. Like, I think this is perfect with a chain strap. Very Chanel looking. But I have made one with a shoulder strap. This is the regular size, so it's quite a bit smaller with a lobster clasp, so that way it can be interchangeably used. Either you can make a or add a crossbody strap or use a shoulder strap. This is 30 inches long, this shoulder strap, but that's what it looks like with a shoulder strap. And then again, we have a little cell phone pocket. Dual slip pocket on the inside and a zipper pocket. Such a pretty bag. I think I'm going to keep doing the drop-in lining. I really like the way it comes together. And this is 125% of the regular pattern bag. I love it. I hope you guys like it too. That's all that I have to sew today. I do have to jump off. I have a custom order notebook that I have to make and get that shipped out today. And then Monday and Tuesday I will be live 11 a.m. Eastern time. These will be for sale. I haven't added them to my website yet, but if you're interested in any one that you've seen, I'm not sure if I want to keep this for myself. But if you have to have it, just send me an email, info@butterbags.com. I'll tell you how much it is, and if you'd like to purchase it, you can. If not, that's totally okay too, because this will go in my closet. It's gorgeous. Thank you guys. The inside of the black bag, this is a canvas, so it's a little bit thicker, but it is leopard print. It's got a dark brown zipper, and then it also has that dual slip pocket on the front, so you can just slide stuff in. Yeah, I'm obsessed with the black. Does it not give you a Chanel quilted bag? I love it. And again, I will not be mad if this has to go into my closet. And if it gets sold, I'll probably make myself one anyways. All right, thanks for hanging out with me. Again, if you missed anything or if you want to watch the replay and take notes on different sizes or pattern pieces that I changed, this will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. If you click on this BB right here, it'll take you to my TikTok homepage. Right underneath the follow button are links. It's got like my website, my Instagram, and it also has my YouTube, or you can just search Butter Bags on YouTube. You should be able to find me. Yes, the strap definitely makes it look Chanel. I agree. Bye, Deanie. See you next week. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, you guys. Y'all have a great weekend. Bye.